Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Delicacies, where we bring the best and brightest from the industry to talk all things tech, talk all things innovation, talk all things loyalty, talk all things data. This show is sponsored by Incentivio. I'm your host, Arun Kumar, Director of Partnerships here at Incentivio. We have a very, very, very special guest today. The reason why we're here, the one, the only, our co-founder and COO, Sash Dias. Sash, thanks for joining.
Hey, Arun, thanks for having me on.
Amazing. So would love to jump into it. There's so much we want to cover. Very excited to have you on, of course. For the viewers, would love to start with a quick story of yourself, Sash. I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with you very closely for the last over a year now. I know a lot about you, but would love for you to share your story with all the listeners out there.
Just a little bit about me. I was born in Sri Lanka, went to college out on the West Coast in California, but the last almost 20 years, the East Coast and specifically Boston has been my home. A little bit about me. By education, I'm an economist, and that'll kind of come through in, some of what we do with the product. But also by passion, I'm a race car driver and a wildlife photographer. And, those are kind of the two things that get me out of bed on a weekend. During the week, it's Incentivio that gets me out of bed, and working with data and helping customers and restaurant brands kind of use their data to drive business results.
Love it. So, I mean, it's a pretty stark dynamic, right? Like, working at a tech company during the day, and then it seems like in the evenings, it's like wildlife photography, race car driving. That's like, kind of like, that's probably what keeps your balance between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely helps kind of unwind and kind of take your mind off the day to day. So you come back kind of refreshed and ready to kind of attack another week. So it's fun. And I think, the two different hobbies also kind of, they're so different, where race car driving is kind of just always being on the edge and kind of pushing the limits, whereas wildlife photography is kind of spending time out in nature and being patient and watching and waiting. So they're very different things and bring out different parts of my personality as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say one requires a lot of patience. The other one's just kind of like go, impulse drive. Yeah, that's very cool. Would love to talk about the story of Incentivio, right? So, I've been here for over a year now, and the reason that brought me here, of course, is all the innovative things that we're doing and how we're trying to redefine the guest experience. And of course, I've only seen, kind of like the last just over a year journey here, and obviously been following you guys before that, but would love for everybody to understand, how Incentivio came to be.
Yeah, so this was back in, I think, 2014, 2015, so just around 10 years ago now, where my co-founder and our CEO, Rajat, and I were actually involved with a company that was implementing mobile payments for one of the largest brands, restaurant brands in the US, I would say top three, right, with tens of thousands of global locations. We were implementing kind of in-store mobile payments, right? This is before Apple Pay and Google Pay were very popular and widely accepted. And this is in-store mobile payments using the app. And when our teams were kind of working on this project and integrating into kind of their tech stack, we were integrating into kind of, mobile payments companies, online ordering, mobile ordering companies, CRM, CDP, gift cards, email marketing, SMS marketing. It was an incredibly complex tech stack that they had, right? And kind of with their IT, they had just, such a large IT team to kind of look at the data across all these silos and figure out who's this one guest across these silos, and also then to figure out, what is the guest doing with the brand? How do we kind of incentivize certain behaviors? It was very difficult. And they could do it because they had the resources and, a budget in the tens of millions of dollars a year. But we knew back then, with everything going digital, what happens to all the restaurant brands with under even 1,000 locations, right? They don't have tens of millions of dollars a year to spend on this digital guest engagement tech stack. How do they truly understand the customer and use that data to drive business results? And, I'm a foodie and my co-founder is a foodie as well, right? And we looked at, do we want the restaurant industry to be limited to just the largest brands, right? What's going to happen to these smaller regional and local brands that, really bring that culinary diversity? The genesis was kind of almost selfish. Hey, we want more restaurant choices, right? And so how do we help ensure that we do have, and all of us have choices as to the restaurant brands that they frequent, different types of food and all that. And that involves really helping the smaller brands, thrive and survive in this digital economy and really use that data.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like, kind of just from your own experience, what you're seeing within restaurants and then being able to have access to those restaurants. And to your point, I mean, very similarly, I think we're all foodies in some way, shape, or form. If we're in this industry, we all have that tie to restaurants. And, I've always felt that like, hey, I mean, growing up, so many cool restaurants that I've been to, little mom and pop shops, or even some of that maybe at a small chain in my city. I always said like, hey, if this place were to ever expand or market themselves the right way, they could be huge. Because anyone that came to visit, I'm like, you have to go to this restaurant. They're like, oh my God, this place is great. I wish I had one in my own town. But that was just primarily word of mouth. So to your point, that it's a very unfair advantage that, Starbucks and McDonald's, some of the big folks in the world get that versus some of the great places we know around the corner don't.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially what we want to do is kind of democratize the access and the use of this data to drive business results.
Yeah, love it. And so, that's almost 10 years now that, since that inception's happened. And I'm sure you've seen a ton of change in the industry when it comes to digital guest engagement. Talk to what that's been like and being able to adapt to that as, buying habits have changed and personas have changed and technology has changed.
Yeah, I mean, the more things change, sometimes the more things stay the same, right? What we saw 10 years ago is in a complex tech stack is still there today, right? With the large brands and a lot of smaller brands as well, a very complex tech stack that breaks often because there's so many points of integration and multiple vendors to work with, right? And back then when we said, hey, we want to help restaurants use their data, we dug into that a little bit more and realized, hey, clean data is the first thing we need, right? And to get clean data and to generate exactly the kind of data you need to be able to generate most of that data. So we started with this kind of, let's use the data, but then we kind of backtracked to, well, we need to generate the data. So that led to us kind of building the first two kind of pillars of our platform, which is commerce, right? Everything to do with ordering and payments, and then the engagement, everything to do with loyalty and marketing and so on. So we built those two parts first, right? And we launched and we gained some scale. And it's then that we were finally able to move on to kind of the third part with intelligence, right? So for us, it was a long journey as well because we had to generate the data, then use the data. And, still today in the restaurant industry, we're seeing that complex tech stack with all these silos.
Yeah. So there's kind of two pieces I'd love to touch on here. First is you talk about the complex tech stack, right? And we look at the market today and all the different things that Incentivio provides as a unified platform. There are a lot of companies out there offering just that niche offering, right? Whether it's loyalty, online ordering, all these different pieces. How have you been able to keep Incentivio so successful as a unified platform going against a lot of these folks in the industry that are just offering very niche services?
Yeah, I mean, part of the key is really stepping back and looking at, is it those 87 loyalty features you need and the 72 online ordering features you need, or really do you need is the whole greater than the sum of the parts, right? How do they work together? That's important. So that's what we've really focused on. It's really how does commerce and engagement work together to generate that data and then drive revenue and retention. So, if you compare us against, one of the oldest loyalty platforms in the industry or one of the oldest online ordering platforms, we may have a few less features than them, right? But the beauty of it is in the way they work together and how easy it is to kind of work with that entire one single unified system, and the data is all in one place. So you don't have to run reports and match records to do attribution. Attribution is built in, right? Triggers are built in. So it's really about how it works together rather than all the individual features in each different area.
Yeah. And, talking about the different individual pieces, the three pillars we have are commerce, engagement, and then of course the intelligence side, which is where I want to
Yeah.
kind of pick on next. When it comes to intelligence, we see a lot of companies in the industry today talk about AI and ML. I mean, I think you can walk around, an NRA, every booth pretty much has those letters, and it's almost like a prerequisite now. But
Mhm.
it's something that we've been using, and you've talked about for many,
Mhm.
many years here.
Yeah.
So I'd love to
Mhm.
just understand your approach and our respective approach to AI and ML, and how do you see that changing the way that restaurants look at data?
Yeah. Back, 4 years ago, maybe when we were looking at, our mission is to help restaurants use data, right? But how do we do this at scale for hundreds or thousands of brands and thousands or tens of thousands of locations? The only way to do it was to use AI and machine learning and to make it scalable and to make it dynamic. So we didn't start out by saying we want to build an AI company, right? We started out by saying we want to build a data company that helps restaurants, right? And the most efficient way to do it has been with AI and ML, and we leaned heavily into AI and ML almost 4 years ago at this point, and we've had products out in the market completely automated by machine learning and AI for 3 years now, right? So I know AI and machine learning is cool now, and especially with generative AI, a lot of people are leaning into it, but we've been doing this for a long time, and we got here because we were looking for a solution to a problem, not for problems, but we already have the solution.
Right, right. And you mentioned how, ANML now has become household stuff, right? I remember, I use ChatGPT a lot. There's a lot of different platforms that are out there that people can use in their day-to-day across multiple different, scenarios of how they want to use it. I
Yeah.
think what excites you the most about the advancement of AI and ML, specific when it comes to restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things, right? A lot of what we're doing is on kind of on the machine learning side with, in terms of helping on the marketing side, making marketing more efficient, making sure you have amazing ROI and all your campaigns, and they really drive business results, right? Because it's not really about sending out offers and seeing what the redemption rate is. Congratulations, you just discounted a bunch of food, right? But it's really about how does that change lifetime value, right? And how do you distribute it to just the right guest at just the right time that drives lifetime value in the right way? So that's part of what we do. But there are even kind of other areas that we're looking at, right? As we set up, kind of, demo environments, even for our customers to play around with, even some simple things like generating images, right?
Yeah.
Literally a year and a half ago, you would have to hire a photographer and pay them thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to have a consistent menu, right? Today, you can spend 3 hours on ChatGPT and OpenArt, right? Generating amazing menu descriptions and generating exactly the images you need in the style you need, right? So, those are some of the more obvious things, but what we do is more on the kind of marketing side and marketing optimization, but these are amazing as well with generative AI.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the marketing side of things, right? Because I think we've seen a big shift in how marketing is done across all different industries and
Mhm.
how we consume media,
Yeah.
where it's very much becoming super personalized, right? It's almost like if we see those generic messages, we're going to pass over. We want to see stuff that's specifically catered to us. Like, how have you seen things shift, and do you see a further shift in that as we look at the advancement of these different technologies over the next few years?
Yeah, I think the key is to be able to do personalization at scale, right? When you look at restaurants from 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? It's about you walk in, they know who you are, right? Everybody knows your name, right? They know what you want. Hey, Arun, do you want the usual?
Hmm.
Now, with increasing digital ordering and a digital presence, right? Those things get harder to replicate. Now it's about using technology to kind of replicate that personal experience, right? We know what you like, right? We may show you the menu items you like first, but we may also suggest menu items that we think you like because we know what kind of flavors you like, and we know any allergens that you don't want to eat. So all those different things, right? So it's everything from what you see on the menu to getting the right kind of personalization message at the right time, right? And it's a continuum, right? No, we're not there yet. Nobody's there yet, right? We don't have a perfectly personalized system that understands every customer, right? But we are well on the way to getting there, and we've been putting the building blocks in place to help us get there and work towards that. Where a few years down the line, a marketer could log into the system, and we're able to tell them, hey, we know we've created 3 campaigns that we want you to run. We've worked out the segments, right? We've written the copy using AI. We've generated the images using AI. This is the redemption rate, and this is how much gross margin it's going to drive. And here's how it's going to change the lifetime value of the customers. Click OK to run. That's the world we want to be in the future. And, we're well on our way there.
Yeah, and that's super exciting stuff, right? Because I think this is the kind of stuff we're hearing from our customers as to how they can have it as automated as possible. And because things move so quickly, and
Yeah.
I think we all have much shorter attention spans than we used to, right? When it comes to brands, when it comes to experiences, right? Like a very small bad experience or whatever that is can
Yeah.
easily divert you to another brand because now you can go on your phone and you're getting, advertisements from, let's say you like chicken sandwiches and you see 30 other chicken sandwiches places. So you got to keep that level of retention going at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. And even something as simple as identifying guests who've stopped coming in and trying to win them back, right? With restaurants today that don't use Incentivio, right? They're running reports in their CRM who hasn't come in 3 months, 6 months, a year, exporting that into an email system, SMS system, push notification system, sending them a bunch of coupons and hoping for the best, right? That's a lot of work, but not a lot of visibility as to effectiveness, right? So that's one thing we looked at as well. Restaurants today simply don't have the time. So you need to do it better, but you also need to automate the action as well, right? So what we do is we can automate that whole process, right? When restaurants are onboarding, you can set up what your win back campaigns are, and our AI and machine learning algorithms will identify and send you to the right person at the right time, right? So restaurants don't need to keep coming in and importing and exporting and doing that manual work because margins are thin. There's better ways to spend your money.
Yeah, and I can imagine the impact there is huge because you're number one getting access to just the visibility of where your guests are. But
Yeah.
before they made that mental decision to leave the brand and go elsewhere, you get them to come back,
Yeah.
which again, that's a lot of revenue, but it's also just, it's word of mouth and that person's now talking about their friends about it. So there's probably a big impact on the restaurants we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched upon a key thing there. It's before they leave, right? It's too late if you waited 3 months and they haven't come back in 3 months, right? You need to get them before they leave. So how do you identify their behaviors as they're changing and use those behaviors to predict what their future behavior is going to be?
Yeah, no, and love that. I think that's what we're starting to see. I think more and more of that as an ask now from customers, right? Before it's like, hey, I didn't know this thing existed. Now it's almost become table stakes where it's like, hey, how can I get in front of this? I
Yeah.
think being proactive now is, I think that's, and this is where I love to pick your brain, is it because I look at a lot of this data that is available now and a lot of these tech platforms that are there. And I
Mhm.
think ultimately what it does is it gives restaurant operators the ability to become much more proactive now, as
Mhm.
opposed to, I think a lot of restaurants, for the most part, prior to all this technology, were very reactive, or they just didn't know kind of like who the guests are coming in, let alone how to, operationalize any data around them. But
Mhm.
now that proactive type of measure is, I think, what helps them big time in generating more revenue and getting more revenue to come back.
Yeah, and I think we saw this early on 10 years ago with Amazon, right? Where you're shopping, you're browsing, you're adding things to the cart, you're automatically discovering things that you didn't know you wanted, but you actually did. But now it's come kind of to such an extent that, you walk around your house, you say a few things about a topic, and the next thing you see in your email is an offer for what you were talking about in your house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, kind of gets towards, sometimes being a little creepy, but, this is the level that marketers are going to, right? And especially in retail. And I think retail at this point is ahead of the restaurant,
Mm.
is ahead of restaurant industry in terms of the sophistication and what they can do and, decoding intent signals and all of that, right? So that's where we want to take the restaurant industry to, that retailer level of sophistication in terms of being able to, figure out what people want because before they know they want it.
Right. And why do you think that retailers, the retail side of things took that head start when it came to this data focused approach?
I think, it really started with Amazon, and I think it really started with scale, right? They were able to leverage their scale to do a lot of different things. But also with e-commerce retailers, right? I think because they weren't running brick and mortar locations, right? They had more resources to think about, marketing and right, because you can't rely on people walking past and seeing your restaurant or retail store, right? You had to, from the very top of the funnel, you've got to attract people in, you got to bring them back, right? You got to retarget them when they abandon their cart, go away, but you finally get them to make the purchase in 2 weeks, right? So I think it's really e-commerce retailers that kind of were the most advanced.
Got it. Got it. Now, a lot of what we talked about is, how to get folks to come back, spend more, bring people. And it's around this concept of loyalty, right? Being loyal to your brand, being loyal to a restaurant. Before we dive into this conversation, I want to ask, what does loyalty mean to you?
Yeah, to me, loyalty means that essentially you have a high lifetime value to the brand and you attract the guests that have a high lifetime value, right? Essentially, it's about bringing in gross margin dollars because let's face it, restaurants are businesses as well, right? So it's really about that, and it shouldn't be taken to mean that it's just giving away points. It's really about how do you create the behaviors that increase lifetime value. And part of that also is if you have a loyalty program, it shouldn't be automatic, right? You shouldn't be opted into loyalty without even knowing, and then you just go about and use the restaurant and go into the restaurant like it usually do, and then 5 weeks later you found out you have a free entree or $10 in free credit. That's not really, because that hasn't changed my lifetime value, right? Loyalty needs to be this deliberate interaction with the restaurant, right? And that's why we've kind of shied away from things like basing loyalty on credit cards, right? Because you change your credit card or you register your credit card. First of all, it's a lot of friction to register a credit card and opt in. And the second thing is now you're not even thinking about loyalty, you're just paying, right? And that's not going to affect your behavior, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to change your behavior, right?
It's
Really that deliberate thing. Oh, what have I already earned? What can I earn up to? Or if I come in 3 more times this month, I'm going to get here, right? It's about doing that actually changes customer behavior, not automatically giving people loyalty points, because that's like a cashback program, right? That doesn't really change behavior.
Right. And that's, I love the way you put that, the deliberate interaction with restaurants. And I think I look back at, loyalty programs that I joined, both in restaurants and outside of it. It's because I had a good interaction with someone physically at maybe it's that location or over the phone or whatever that is. Where it's like, hey, I feel good about being part of this program. This is why it wants me to come back. So like outside of just let's say it's a dining experience, it's also that personal experience I get from coming back to that restaurant or whatever that is, where I feel good about being part of that program.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to ask you, let's take a step outside the restaurant industry. Like, what loyalty programs are you part of in your personal life that you really enjoy being part of today?
I'll tell you one that I actually was a part of, and that literally caused me to stop using the brand, right? That was, a very large airline company, right? I was part of the loyalty program for 5 years, right? But I didn't feel valued, and I got this sneaky suspicion that I was getting less important as time went by, even though I did fly quite a bit, right? And to me, it was like I would have been more likely to stay with that company if they didn't have a loyalty program. Whereas I was part of their loyalty program and didn't feel at all special, right? My boarding group kept, going backwards. And so, that was just an example of, how not to use loyalty.
Right.
But, there's a number of loyalty programs, that I love from, restaurants, also from local bookstores, right? And it's really, making you feel valued as a human being, as a customer, as an individual. That really makes a difference, right? Just like what that airline didn't do is
Right.
what some of these local businesses do.
Yeah. I mean, the one I love to share is like I've been, and I've shared this on the show a bunch of times, but like Marriott, I think is great. I just
Mhm.
came back from a big trip in Europe, right? I did a lot of Marriott stays, and
Mhm.
immediately when you walk in, hey, Mr. Kumar, thank you for being part of the program. We're
Mhm.
automatically going to they're just the small things, and it made me want to book Marriott everywhere I went, even though in Italy. Marriott doesn't have a big presence in Italy, but I was even picking stuff not directly in the city center just because it was Marriott, because I knew I
Uh-huh.
would get that great experience
Right.
there, which I think, it's where a loyalty program I love. The other one I love, which is very obscure, is Lego. Lego has actually pretty good loyalty program. I buy a lot of like Legos, and you probably know this. I have like a Batman and a Star Wars stuff, but like, get points and you get access to like new stuff, which I think is great. Um, talking about this concept of loyalty,
Mhm.
how do you see it now? We talk about these different parts of the tech stack, but with
Mhm.
regards to loyalty specifically,
Mhm.
do you see a big shift in how that's going to be looked at over the next few years, especially within restaurants and even outside of restaurants?
Yeah, I think there's also a trend, of looking at loyalty just not just as points, but looking more at the surprise and delight and experiential loyalty and all that. I think all of those things have their places. So I think there's a big questioning of loyalty, right? Why? How does it change? How does it drive business results, right? How does it increase customer lifetime value, gross margin dollars that come in, right? So it's really about we need to start looking at it as outcome-based loyalty, not just, hey, I checked the box, I have a loyalty program and we're good.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I even look at like the big demographic, right? Like the Gen Zs of the world, like
Mhm.
they're big on social, they're big on TikTok, and so many times it's like, oh, why did you go here? Oh, someone on TikTok told me to go, right? So I think it's
Right.
like that adapting thing of like how do you keep top of mind,
Mhm.
as the times change and as technology changes as well.
Yeah, for sure.
When it comes to the AI and ML, is there anything in your personal life through your hobbies that you use a lot of AI and ML stuff for? I'm assuming like photography stuff. I know my dad used some stuff to like to do some editing, but is there anything that you use in your personal life when it comes to AI and ML?
Yeah. There's a couple actually. So especially with the photography and editing, there's a lot of tools that kind of sharpen images, reduce noise, and enhance images. But at the same time, there's so many now images that are being generated by AI, right?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
don't know what's real and what's fake, and I almost feel the value of amazing photography is being downgraded a little bit because we are constantly subject to these perfect images, right, that have been generated but look so real.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and then also with race car driving, there's actually Garmin has a system that uses AI to actually improve your driving. So
yeah,
there's actually a video and a full set of sensors that you install in your car, and it uses AI to learn how you drive, the limits of the car, the limits of the track, and then as it learns, it now starts coaching you that hey, you could have gone fast in this corner, right? You could have gained 2/10 in this corner if you turned in earlier, pushed harder, all those things. So, I think it's every part of our life is being affected by AI, whether we like it or not.
yeah, yeah.
And it's going to be a very transformative technology over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, no, I think it's to your point, I have some friends that are in photography and it's like they've almost leaned into photography more because of AI, because that feeling of saying like, hey, I actually took this picture and it's a real picture versus like this is
Mhm.
like an AI generated fake. They almost have like it's like more pride in that photography side of things, which
Uh,
I get. Like, I mean, I do drone for we talk about this. I do drone footage, right? So when I was in Europe, I love taking my drone out, which again, nowadays, they even have like AI video generation, right? Where you can create like a whole clip that's all video generated. But
right.
I love telling people like, hey, I took this drone video and this is like my experience versus,
Mhm.
oh, here's just like a random AI generated whatever that I found online.
Right.
We talked a lot about technology,
Mhm.
specifically to Incentivio and the stuff that we're trying to advance. But I want to take a step back and talk about, the restaurant industry as a whole, right? So you've been in this space now for, well over 10 years.
Mhm.
What are some of the technologies you're seeing coming up, just in this last year or that really excite you or maybe frighten you a little bit? And maybe some of those impacts you see those technologies having on the restaurant industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last couple of years, I've seen a lot with kind of kitchen automation, right? But I haven't seen them really being manifest and used at scale in restaurants. I'm really looking forward to that because I believe that the human beings in the restaurant, right? It's about interacting with guests and providing that hospitality and that experience that human beings are the best at, right? And so trying to take away some of that kind of more mechanical work, automate that, and allowing humans to have actual more human interaction for guests that come and dine in the restaurant, I think is going to be important. Some of the other things that I'm seeing, definitely on the marketing side, right? There's a lot of advances that have been made in the restaurant industry. And even things like, looking further into the future, generating menus using AI, right? And changing how um, the menu mix that you have and the types of menu items you make, whether it's by day part or seasonal, providing that level of intelligence about, hey, it's now tourist season and, we have, this part of the city has a lot of European tourists and right. And, these menu items and these images would help you stand out. So even different things like that.
Yeah, it's to go to your chat about kind of like automating kind of the kitchen, the back of house side of things.
Yeah.
Are you talking about kind of like the use of robotics? We're seeing a lot of that now in
Yeah.
restaurants. Is that kind of what you're referring
Yeah,
to?
yeah, I've seen a lot of it, some amazing cool demos and all of that, and some restaurants using it, but I just wish there was more, we were further along with adoption. Because one trend I see is the restaurant industry, as we all know, has low margins, right? So you're always looking for ways that you can, um, save on costs, right? And being able to repurpose, those back of house team members to now work front of house is going to have a huge impact, right? Even things like looking at food waste, right? There are AI technologies that can tell you when now, whatever's in your fridge or freezer, when is it spoiling, when you need to reorder, how do you change your reordering pattern to minimize spoiling? So a lot of these things, I mean, some amazing technologies, right? I think we're just on the cusp of a lot of them becoming mainstream. I wish they had become mainstream a little bit sooner.
Right. And what do you talking about that mainstream, right? Because it seems that restaurant tech sometimes seems to lag behind a lot of other industries when it
Mhm.
comes to adoption of tech.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that is?
I think it really comes down to kind of the margins, right? Low margins, and also restaurants are busy places, right? Ovens break, burners break, everything from, employees calling out sick to construction on the street outside, right? Running a restaurant is difficult, right? And there's a
Yeah.
ton of demands on your time and attention, right? So it's tough to really step back and think strategically because there's just so many things going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's harder for them to take these risks with technology when they're not sure. It's tough. It's much tougher to be bleeding edge or kind of like first adopter
Yeah.
in an industry where there's so much risk involved. And I guess, we also see there's so many extraneous factors, right? Like, I mean, the pandemic happened and, stuff with the economy and the election coming up. There's a lot of things that can affect restaurants and, a lot of the laws that are coming into place in different states as well is really impacting restaurants. So,
Yeah.
so the one piece here, kind of getting close to the end here, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, Incentivio has obviously a unified platform covering a lot of different pieces of the guest engagement, side of things. For listeners, for viewers that are watching, if you had to explain Incentivio to them in the simplest way, right? Because we do have a very unified platform, a lot of different things. How would you best do that?
Yeah, I mean, Incentivio really wants to be known as the platform that helps you use your data to have a better, healthier business, right? That means guests that come back, that have larger orders, right? Order the items that are, that deliver the most gross margin, right? But it's really about using a data-driven approach to improving your business. That's what we want to be known for. And, that was kind of the founding principle almost 10 years ago. And, that's still something that is our North Star today.
Yeah, love it. And I'm super excited. Obviously, a lot of stuff we can't share on this call about the things we're building in the background, but I'm super excited about kind of all the things that we have cooking in the background and what we're going to be able to show people really, really soon. Before we kind of wrap up here, Sash, any last things you want to share about the Incentivio story, about Incentivio, about yourself?
Yeah, just about Incentivio. I mean, I think we are growing incredibly rapidly, and for any of our kind of customers and partners that are listening to this, I just want to say thank you for being a part of our journey and helping us on this journey. And we have some amazing customers that challenge us and bring us insights and give us feedback. And just wanted to say thank you for everybody, and for everybody who's not yet worked with Incentivio. What are you waiting for?
Love it. Love it. So Sash, typically how we end the show is with a quick lightning round. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions. First thing that comes to mind, let's hear it. So what's your current favorite cocktail of choice?
Cocktail of choice. It's got to be an old fashioned.
Okay. Big old fashioned guy myself. Actually, they had some cool twists on the old fashioned when I was in Italy where they had like different stuff. But can't go wrong with an old fashioned.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a little bit of Campari in that old fashioned.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lunch or dinner party?
Dinner for sure.
Why?
It's too much light during the day.
Good. If you were to open your own restaurant, what would it be?
Wow, that's a tough question. It would definitely have lots of meat. It would probably be a barbecue place, right? I'm a carnivore, love all types of meat. So yeah, it would definitely be a barbecue place.
Nice. What is your dream car?
What is my dream car? That's a great question. It would definitely be a race car because I love driving cars fast, but I drive very slowly on public streets. So it would definitely be a race car. You know what? It wouldn't be too expensive though, because, I feel that, for me, I love driving cars fast and taking them to the edge, and I don't want to be worried about wrecking a car. So it's got to be a car that I can afford to wreck. So, a race car that's not too expensive.
Do you have a specific one in mind?
Maybe Mazda MX-5 Cup car, right? So these are the little Miatas you see on the street, but they actually sell a factory race version that is fully race prepped, and that you can literally drive it to the edge and not be worried about crashing it and
Nice.
having to take out a second mortgage on a house.
So for anyone in Boston that sees a Mazda drifting through the streets, you know who it's going to be. Do you have a favorite restaurant in Boston right now that you want to shout out, and your favorite meal at that restaurant?
I think definitely Smoke Shop. I actually had Andy Husband's book. I've owned one of his barbecue books for I think 10 years, but they became a, customer, about a year ago or so. And, love the restaurant. If you haven't been, you have to go. I think they have 3 or 4 locations now, but yeah, definitely that's one of my favorites.
Nice. I've been there. I can't remember when I went to Boston. I've been there. I can second that. It's a really, really good spot. And not surprised you picked the barbecue spot. I know how much of a carnivore you are. So, so Sash, that brings us to the end here of the episode. I really want to thank you for sharing a lot of cool stuff. I just kind of want to recap some of the key points that you brought up. In terms of through our conversation. Kind of the origin story of how you started Incentivio, the changes you've seen over the last 10 years. And really talking about leveling the playing field. And that whole concept of, you have unified platforms versus kind of like folks that follow very big niche things, but the most important things is how things work together, especially around that commerce and engagement piece.
Right.
And, loyalty is not just about giving discounts or just about a points cashback program. It's about creating lifetime value and how your interactions with the restaurant enhance every single time you go back. And, finally, Incentivio, really what you're trying to do, with the business is give a data-driven approach to restaurants so they can run a healthier business, which I love that. I think there's so much talk about data and we all talk about it, but it can also be overwhelming. And I think the platform that we provide gives them a very easy way to then take that data and then action it and actually, get a great ROI back. So, Sash, I want to thank you again. Any last parting words here before we sign off?
No, I mean, I just want to say thanks for, having me on. This is great chatting with you, even though we kind chat on professional capacity almost every day, but, awesome to just kind of step away from, day-to-day business and kind of talk, about the restaurant industry and where it's going and where it's been. So thanks for having me on.
Of course. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
To get in touch with me personally, you can always email me, sash@incentivio.com. And, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and other socials as well. Great.
So this episode actually will be launching pretty soon, and it's going to be before the FS Tech conference, which I believe you're going to have a speaking engagement at.
Yes, very relevant topic. We're going to be talking about how AI is changing kind of the marketing game in the restaurant industry. So watch out for that. That's going to be an interesting one. If you're going to be there, would love to meet in person and say hi.
Love it. Yeah. So I think this whole concept of AI marketing is huge, and we see it at a lot of different conferences. So yeah, if you're at FS Tech, definitely come through. Kat Sash, he's an amazing speaker, and he did this last year as well at the conference. It was a full house, so make sure you get there early. And for whatever reason you can't, we're definitely reach out to him directly. He's always happy to chat about this stuff because he's a guru when it comes to this. So Sash, I want to thank you again. This is another episode of Data Delicacies. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is Sash Dias, our COO and co-founder. I'm your host, Arun. This is powered by Incentivio. We are still looking for guests to join the show. If you are interested, please reach out to me directly to arun@incentivio.com or find us on LinkedIn or find us directly through our webpage. And with that, we'll wrap up. Sash, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Arun. Take care.
Thank everyone for tuning in. Until next time.